What up, everybody? What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Wednesday. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials of 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online at sportstalk1051.com. You got, you can stream it up over there, download the app, take it on the go. Got the video streams up and rolling, Facebook and YouTube. Also, smart devices, smart speakers, all that good stuff. But big thanks for making us a part of your start. If you're already up and at it on this 2nd of October. And I wish we were talking about leading off with a win from the Brewers last night, but that's not the case, obviously. Brewers falling to the Mets in game 1, 8-4. Brewers jumped out to an early lead, putting up 2 runs in the first. Maybe it looks like, okay, gonna get in a little bit of groove here, but gave it right back in the top of the second. Then they retook the lead in the fourth, but that fifth inning that a lot of Brewers fans talking about, questioning, venting about, whatever word we want to use to go out there and describe it. But nonetheless, the Mets were able to put up 5 runs in that fifth inning and hold on for an 8-4 victory. And now it is a do or die tonight. Do or die situation tonight for the Brewers. Frankie Montas is going to get the ball. He's going to get starts in game 2 here. Otherwise, Brewers trying to force a final game 3 that would be played on Thursday in Milwaukee, but we'll see. Tonight, they're going to be going up against Manea, so it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one. So, but hopefully the offense can come out. Hopefully Frankie Montas has a good start and a solid start in him. But I'm sure maybe there's some Brewers fans that want to kind of vent about some of the decisions last night, specifically Freddie Peralta getting pulled, heading into the fifth inning. There, you listen to Freddie, and we're gonna play a clip from Freddie when he's talking with the media after the game. You could tell he was not happy. And you could tell he was not in favor of that decision of him being pulled there. But Freddie just going 4 innings, his final line, 4 innings, 3 earned runs, struck out 5. Payamps gets charged with the loss with 3 earned runs. Ashby came in and added 2 more earned runs on there. But you had defensive miscues. Jackson Cheerio not making the catch in left field. Although his manager and teammates kind of saying at that point in time in the day with the windows and the glass, that point in left field is a little hard to play at times. And then you had the miscue at first base with Hoskins getting the grounder, but Payamps not covering right away and then missing the bag to try to get the outs. I mean, there was chances there for the Brewers to escape and not allow any runs, but mistakes caught up to them. And give credit to the Mets. Mets capitalized on those mistakes, and they were able to put up a big number, put up a crooked number of 5 runs there. So, but on the brink of elimination, and I think, I'll go back to, Bob, if you're listening, I'll go back to the question you had about yesterday. If the Brewers get swept or they lose us, what changes would they go through? And I don't know if they would go through any changes, but there's definitely frustration from a lot of Brewers fans if this is another quick out. I was talking to our good buddy, Mr. Brandon Berg, who's probably the biggest Brewers person that I know. And I mean, he'll be on Friday, and he can kind of talk about depending on what the situation is going to be like. But he was incredibly frustrated, and he even said if they look that bad again today, he might go all Randy Quaid on Friday morning. So, but as he said, it would just be another year of the same stuff. 1 playoff win since 2019 with 5 appearances. And the last 3, they've been the higher seed. So no doubt about it. There's a huge frustration level. Now, hey, things could change in the next couple days here. Maybe they win tonight. Hopefully they win tonight. And hopefully they would win tomorrow there. But if it's another quick out, yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of frustration, a lot of angst, and a lot of disappointment surrounding this team that they're getting to the postseason, which for a lot of us, we never experienced for a long time, but expectations change a little bit. And just getting to the postseason maybe isn't necessarily good enough anymore. We want postseason wins. We want to advance. We want to compete for championships and such. So, but we'll play a little clip from Freddie last night and get your thoughts. You can start to text us right now at 715-830-1912. I know it's not a grind my gears Tuesday, but I think we can definitely add a little grind my gears uh, to this Wednesday here. So, or maybe choose to stay positive. Be like, you know what? It's not over yet. Got to win too. They would have to go against the odds in terms of playoff history in this situation. But hey, stuff's meant to be broken and such. Other games last night or yesterday, the Tigers pulled off the win against Houston. Kansas City able to pull off a 1-0 win against Baltimore, and then the Padres picking up a 4-0 victory against the Braves. So the Tigers, the Royals, the Mets, and the Padres have all put themselves in a position that if they were to win today / tonight, they will move on to the divisional series. So we'll talk some baseball throughout the morning, and the Brewers and such. So we'll chat a little football here. Packers getting set to return to practice as they prepare for the Rams coming up here this weekend. So we'll get an idea of maybe some injuries and such. We'll hear from Matt LaFleur later on today. I know specifically wondering about Devontae White and Christian Watson and such, but we'll kind of get that a little bit later on here. But it's a midweek adjustment, right? We're moving on. We're moving on to the Rams here. So, but I don't think for anybody asking, I know there's but the whole I know the big story in the NFL right now is the whole Devontae Adams situation that apparently Devontae Adams has asked to be traded, which I think some Packers fans are again kind of maybe saying, at least the ones I saw on social media, that kind of said, kind of doing the Jordan shrugs sort of thing, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have left. Maybe you shouldn't have left Devontae, but he ain't coming back. Packers aren't going to trade for him or anything like that. I mean, that would be a shot. Obviously, everybody's thinking Jets with Aaron Rodgers and that. I know I was reading some of the stuff last night. Location's going to be important. Apparently, still maybe a West Coast sort of thing. I don't know. There's a team that the Packers play this weekend that could really use a wide receiver at this point in time. But, um, we'll see if it actually does happen before the deadline. That's coming up at the end of this month. Sure seems like it at this point, but we'll talk some football and talk some green and gold as we get set to kind of shift our focus over to the Rams here, where you got a Rams team that isn't going to have their top two wide receivers, no Puka, no Cooper. Well, got to wonder if they're going to maybe sit Jair out for this weekend, knowing that. I guess we'll see. Maybe get a glimpse of that at practice today. But would they elect to sit him to make sure that maybe he's ready next week to go up against a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., who's coming to Lambeau, and to make sure he's good to go for the following week in case he's got to go up against Stephon Diggs or Nico Collins, against the Texans there. So I wouldn't be shocked if they elect to sit him another week, especially when you're dealing with a groin and a quad if it is a soft tissue injury over there. So, but we'll talk some green and gold. We've got business and sports coming up just past 8:00 as well. So we will hit that up. But it is a midweek adjustments here. So Brewers coming up. Brewers tonight. What's the adjustment? What's the midweek adjustment here for this Brewers team? Taking a look at a do or die game 2. We'll recap last night. We'll hear from Freddie Peralta. Also, too, last night's, if you were watching, listening, or whatever, the whole Willie Adames and Jesse Winker thing was kind of weird. Both not really saying after the game what was said. Winker said that he was just chewing gum and essentially said he didn't say anything, but video kind of shows otherwise. But wouldn't say what was being said. And then Willie kind of just said he was a little surprised at what was being said and such, but didn't really go into what was said. So I don't know what that situation's like. I don't know if Winker was still annoyed with getting booed and plunked in the previous series and such, but Brewers fans obviously not happy with how he performed last year in Milwaukee. So don't know if it was just a little bit of, he had a big hit with that triple and letting some of the emotions out there. But nonetheless, didn't really get a full on answer there. So, all right, let's get things rolling here. We'll get the lead off, started off here. We'll recap last night's victory or last night's loss by the Brewers. Take a look at tonight's do or die matchup. Tonight's do or die matchup. Brewers just went up against this pitcher for the Royals too. They went up against Sean back on the 27th, and they put up a lot of runs against him. Overall, he was 12-6 with a 3.47 ERA. But his last appearance against Milwaukee, pitching 3 2/3, Brewers were able to put up some runs against him. Could they do the same tonight? They better, right? So let's talk about it. Okay, let's get going here this morning. Baseball talk to open it up. Playoffs continue tonight. Some teams maybe moving on or maybe not quite yet. Maybe looking ahead to or trying to force a Thursday game. We'll talk some baseball next. Going on right now at Princeton Valley this month. They've got a new burger called the Packer Backer, and we're gonna give you a chance to win one, to win some burgers over there. All right, so each week for the rest of this month, make sure you're listening. We'll have opportunities for you to win one of these burgers. The beauty part of this is that this is topped with burger patties and Oktoberfest brats from our good friends at Mike's Star Market. So if you go to Princeton Valley's Facebook page right now, you can check out a picture of that and look at how amazing this thing looks. So, what do you think, C-Bomb? Maybe we might have to go over there, C-Bomb, and check this out over here too. But pay attention throughout the rest of this week and the rest of the month for your chance to potentially win one of these, or just go on over to Princeton Valley Golf Course and get yourself a Packer Backer burger before it runs out. And when you know it's made with Mike's Star Markets with their brats and burgers, you know that's good quality over there. And with hunting season, especially, youth hunts coming up this weekend. If any of those kiddos have any luck and you're wondering, hey, where do I take the deer to get processed? Mike Star Market. Check out their Facebook page. They've got all the prices and details and different options for you to choose from over there. Or you can stop by over at the west side of Eau Claire and Heimstead Road there and talk with Sarah, Mike, or whoever's behind the counter there and get some details over there. All right, let's get things going here this morning. First off, let's listen to Freddie Peralta. So hindsight's always 2020, right? Hindsight's always 2020. But what was the first reaction, first thought that kind of went through your mind when Freddie got pulled after the fourth inning? Okay, what was your reaction? Hindsight's always 2020. We know what happened after that. Here's Freddie Peralta, audio courtesy from Todd Rosiak, who covers the Brewers for the Milwaukee Journal. His thoughts after the game about being pulled. All right, so that's just a little bit more when he was straight up asked, "Are you angry? You disappointed?" And Freddie saying, "I'd prefer not to answer that." Um, Here's the thing too. As a competitor, I don't expect anything else. Nothing, no other type of answer from Freddie Peralta. As a competitor on that stage in the postseason, nobody wants to come out. Nobody wants to leave the game, especially when you're looking up at the scoreboard and you're entering the fifth inning. Okay. So I don't expect any other type of answer from Freddie Peralta when he's asked, were you upset when you came out and all that? I would hope he'd be upset because I want that competitor to kind of have that mindset. Now, a lot of times, coaches and managers, yes, they've got to make that decision and protect the team, protect the player. If a guy's struggling out there and he's in the seventh and he's like at 110 pitches or whatever, of course, then you got to look at that. But I honestly, I wouldn't expect it in this particular situation. I wouldn't expect any other type of answer from Freddie Peralta. So, yeah, I think he's upset. I think he's frustrated. I think he's mad at the decision and such. And honestly, I'm not surprised. And I don't think anybody should be too surprised about that decision. Whether it was right or wrong, I mean, that's kind of what's up for debate. Now, we heard from Freddie. What did Pat Murphy have to say about the decision to take out Freddie Peralta in that game? Essentially, he was saying that he was approaching that pitch count. Here's from Kurt Hogg from Pat Murphy. He's probably 18 pitches from where his kind of his limits. We take the lead in a game. We've got a full bullpen. It's a playoff game. You don't, well, we'd like to get him to 5 because of our bullpen usage over the week. You don't do that. You're playing to win tonight. Payamps has got a 1.03 ERA in 30 games. Hasn't given up a run in 12 outings. Payamps gets into the top of the order again, or if Peralta gets to the top of the order again, then it changes how we use the bullpen. Then Ashby has to come in for Nemo and get the ground ball like he did. Payamps is out of the inning, and we're not even talking about this. It was a good outing for Freddie. He was very emotional, so those 70 pitches are a little different when it's that emotion. When it's that much emotion, Payamps got the great play by Cheerio, and it's a tough left field out there at the same time of day. So that second ball, although it should have been caught, give the kid credit. It's a tough line drive in that sun. That's the one spot of the field that's tough. He doesn't catch the ball. Now we've got to get 4 outs. Payamps gets the next out. Then he doesn't cover first, and then 2 infield hits, and we bring in Ashby. He gives up an infield hit, then gives up another hit. They've got to face 3 hitters. It's unlike Ashby. He's been one of our best guys. His stuff is unbelievable. It's just unfortunate. Credit to the Mets. All they've been through, credit to them, no doubt about it. But Payamps and Ashby leaving Freddie in one more inning, maybe we could have. It would have changed how we use the relievers, but maybe we could have. I just felt like we took the lead. It had been an emotional 70 pitches. What's he got? 20 left. He's usually been 83 to 90 when he kind of loses a little bit on his fastball. I didn't want to face those guys 3 times around. That was kind of my explanation. So essentially, didn't want Freddie facing him the 3rd time around. And again, we kind of talked about it the other day. What's maybe the biggest strength, or what's the thing that you're the most confident in? And the majority was the bullpen. Was the bullpen pitcher. So you have a lead, you hand it off to the bullpen. And when you look at the numbers with Payamps, yeah, I mean Freddie, Pat Murphy kind of alluded to it. 1.03 ERA in his last 30 innings, 30 games, whatever it was over there. Sometimes those decisions work. Sometimes they don't. I was talking again with our good buddy Brandon last night, and I asked him about it, and he said the decision to take him out didn't bother him as much as the consecutive defensive peeing of the pants as what we saw in the 5th inning. And then, as C-Bomb said a little bit earlier too, I don't necessarily disagree pulling Freddie. Historically, he's been terrible in the 5th inning, but he got his stuff together and was rolling pretty well. In hindsight, they probably should have kept him, but I didn't disagree at the time. That's going to be debated about. That's going to be talked about, especially if this is a short series and a short season for the Brewers. But that's our job as fans, and in this role we can hindsight it, question it, criticize it, praise it, depending on what happens in that. But overall, the game, I mean, it was. I'll admit, after the 1st inning, getting 2 runs there, getting jacked up, I was intense. I was watching it. Then the 2nd, then you allow those 3 runs. I was like, oh crap, they get it back, and I'm like, okay, here we go. But then it just deflated that 5th inning. The misplay by Cheerio, the non-catch. I get it. Sometimes those liners like that, anybody who's played outfield in that, kind of get caught up in that. And if it is a bad spot in left field with the light, with the glare and that, okay, whatever. But then the miscues, Hoskins gets the grounder, Payamps is late to cover, can't get there, can't cover the base, can't touch the base. Those little miscues can't happen. Those defensive errors can't happen in playoff games. They can't happen. Can't happen in game 163. If you want to count it like as that. It can't happen. And credit to the Mets for taking advantage of it. Credit to them for exposing it. Brewers screwed up a couple plays, and you got to tip your cap to the Mets that they took advantage of that. Ashby looked like he was kind of maybe leaving some stuff higher up in the zone there. Mets were attacking him. I think some people kind of thought the same thing. Okay, you look at the Mets the last few days. Sunday you leave Milwaukee after losing that series. You win on Sunday, but then you go to Atlanta. Monday, you got to play a doubleheader. You don't know what your playoff lives are like. You win game 1, and you clinch your spot. Game 2, you lose, but then you celebrate in the locker room. Oh, got to fly a plane again back to Milwaukee. And thinking, okay, a lot of wear and tear, maybe a little tired, body a little tired now. That's grinded it out. They didn't use it as an excuse. They didn't lie down. So credit to them. As much as it stinks as a Brewers fan, kind of got to tip your cap to them a little bit there. So game 2 tonight, do or die here for the Brewers. And we've got 2 pitchers that are going to be going up against each other. 2 pitchers that are going to get the start. And both these pitchers pitched on the 27th. Frankie Montas against the Mets on the 27th. Sean Manaea against the Brewers on the 27th as well. Frankie went 4 innings, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts. Sean, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, got charged with the loss. He went 3 2/3, 5 earned runs, 7 hits, just 1 strikeout. So Frankie Montas, and that was a game 2 after that Mets. It's a nice bounce back one because he really struggled against the Diamondbacks on the 22nd. That's when he went 2 2/3 and gave up 7 earned runs. But for the most part, you take that game out of September, not bad. I mean, not bad month of September. August in 6 games, he was 2-1 with a 3.82 ERA as well. Trying to look if Frankie faced, if that was the only time he faced the Mets this year, and it looks like that. Yeah, that was the only time he faced the Mets, was that game back on the 27th. So I was just kind of curious to see if we got any more games to kind of compare it to. Sean, meanwhile, here, was that the only one there too? Kind of looks like it. All right, yeah. Yep, that's the only one there too. So it's, when you look at Manaea's regular season, 12-6 with a 3.47 ERA in 32 games. Not bad. I mean, solid in that. But again, you're looking at his last outing. Is there an opportunity there, or was that just one of those hiccup type of performances from him? Because for the month of September, he's actually been pretty darn solid. I mean, back on the 6th against the Reds, he went 6 2/3 and 4 earned runs. But this is a guy, outside of that game on the 27th, he's been pitching deep in the games. He's really been pitching deep in the game. I mean, you look at a lot of his game logs and you look at how his outings, you're talking about getting through 7 or 6 2/3. So, I mean, this is a guy, and his pitch counts, not really that high either. I mean, you're looking at, for example, against the Phillies, back on the 21st, he went 7 innings, 89 pitches. Against Washington on the 16th, 7 innings, 85 pitches. September 1st, 7 innings, 96 pitches. I mean, this is a guy that is getting deep into games without really racking up a high pitch count either. And if you're the Brewers offense, I think you want to try to get to that bullpen. You want to try to maybe be aggressive and try to get up that pitch count and maybe get to that bullpen from the Mets there. And let's face it, it's going to be a little tough with Sean. Offense has got to be up to the challenge here. Frankie, on the other hand, going back to that Mets game, it was a nice bounce back game for him because, as we mentioned, he struggled mightily against Arizona. And I mean, Frankie, let's face it. Outside of a handful of games, I know that game against the Giants, he was wonderful. Picked up a win, 6 innings, 2 hits, no earned runs. But let's base it off the averages. Frankie is probably going to give up at least a couple earned runs here. I know he had that stretch too in August against the Dodgers and the Cardinals where he went back-to-back games and no earned runs. But you look at his numbers, there's probably going to be at least a couple of earned runs. So offensively tonight for the Brewers, bats better be ready. And the bats better be prepared to carry this team here. Be aggressive. Put up some runs. We wanted them to put up some runs early in the game yesterday. They did that, but again, they just couldn't hold on to it. Mistakes. Mistakes in pitching in the second. Mistakes defensively in the fifth. So I think for some keys to victory or some keys for tonight's game is try to get to that bullpen of the Mets. Don't let Sean Manaea kind of get in that groove where he's going to be able to go deep and not have a high pitch count. Got to get on the board early. Don't have any mistakes. Don't have any miscues. Those are going to come back to bite you when it's playoff time. Can't have those mistakes tonight. Limit the mistakes. Have your offense put up an early lead. Be aggressive. Maybe try to get that pitch count up there. And hopefully Frankie Montas has a solid night. Hopefully, I mean, it'd be wonderful if he had a game like he did against the Giants where he went 6 innings, 2 hits, no earned runs, or a game he had against the Cardinals, 7 innings, no earned runs, 1 hit. The Dodgers, 5 innings, no earned runs. Those type of games. That would be ideal. But the offense has to be up for the challenge going up against Sean Manaea. And hopefully they can be able to do something similar to what they did the last time they faced him just a few days ago. Your predictions for the game tonight. Your predictions. Hit me up with a text, all right? 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. Who do you got tonight? And let me know what your thoughts were on pulling Freddie. Do you agree with Pat Murphy? Didn't really want to go and have the batters face him a third time around. Wanted to get to that bullpen. He had a full bullpen. Bullpen has been the bright spot, perhaps the best part of the team throughout the majority part of the season. Do you agree with Pat Murphy or the way Freddie Peralta was pitching at that point in time? Looked like he was in a little bit of a groove. Should he have kept him? We're playing a little hindsight here. And I understand that because you know what? The Brewers win. Probably not even talking about it. But they didn't. So we got to talk about it, right? So your thoughts, hit me up with that text, 715-830-1912. We'll take a quick break here and give you your predictions for the other games today here. Are we going to get any teams moving on, or is every single team going to go to a game 3, which will be tomorrow? All right, quick break. We'll be back in just a few short minutes. As the old phrase goes, look good, play good. Well, if you're a sports team or a league, youth sports team, youth leagues, listen up. If you need some new jerseys or apparel for your team or league, you don't have to look too far for help because Resonance Branding Company is right in your backyard. From jerseys, pants, shorts to other gear you may need to help you perform and look your best on the field and court, Resonance Branding Company will work with you to get just what you need. They'll even help set up an online store so your fans can purchase some merchandise too. Just visit resonancebRandingCompany.com to get started. Remember, look good, play good. Resonance Branding Company, official swag provider for the program. Got some new stuff up there. Sweet Scotty Sportsman logo, tees, hoodies, long sleeve tees up there. For the love of the game logo, tees, hoodies, long sleeves, all that good stuff. So big thanks to Resonance Branding. Love that Scotty Sportsman logo. That epitomizes what a Wisconsin sportsman is. Go check it out. You need the link. Text me and I'll text you the link back. All right. Text me and I'll text you the Swag Cave link back. But I got to order myself some of those teas over there. No doubt about it. Okay, we're gonna talk some more baseball throughout, but just a few predictions here. First off, Jeremy was a little bit earlier said my first reaction was don't put in Pyomps. Wish he could have stayed in, but I get it. Probably trying to save him. Probably get him ready for game one of the next series, but you got to win the first one first. As the Brewers' mindset, their kind of phrase this year has been win tonight. But it seems like the majority of you are going with the Brewers. We do have a couple of you saying season's over with already. So, but yeah, that's kind of where it's at. It's just a lot of texts are saying Brewers, Brewers, Brewers. A couple of you saying going with the Mets. I don't think the Brewers rebound from last night's game. That's according to Luke. And then we've got another message saying just the Mets over there too. So, but at least right now, I don't know if it's optimism or what, but G-Man earlier, G-Man even texted before we got on the air here. Brewers are just fine. The Crew will win game 2 and watch the Brewers will win game 3. And the Crew is moving on to the next series. Other games in action, everybody's in action. That's for the wild card round today. We got Tigers and Astros. Tigers picking up a win yesterday in Houston. So Houston on the brink of elimination. Can the Tigers pick up another win? We got KC and Baltimore. Kansas City picking up a 1-0 victory against Baltimore yesterday. Then the Padres picking up a victory against the Braves. So all but one home team or all but one road team won yesterday. So Detroit won, Kansas City won, and the Mets won. All road teams. Padres were a home team. They were the only home team to win yesterday. But schedule for your games tonight: 1:30 again for the Tigers in Houston, 3:30 for Kansas City and Baltimore. The Mets and Brewers game going to be a little bit earlier, or a little bit later, excuse me, about 6:30-ish. 6:38. If you go to the Motherships at 6:30, but from the Brewers it's 6:38. So coverage will begin at about 6 o'clock on the radio dials, 105.1 FM and 790 AM. You can listen to it there. And then the nightcap, you got Brewers Braves versus Padres, 7:30. 7:30. Again, Frankie Montas is going to get start for the Crew. And Sean Manaea is going to get to start for the Mets. Both these pitchers pitched in their games back on the 27th against each other there too. So we'll see who's got the advantage at this point. So, couple more going with Brewers here on your picks. All right, keep them coming. Okay. We'll get back to some more baseball talk coming up here in just a little bit. In the next hour, we're going to throw in some football talk here too. The Packers going to get set back to return to practice today. We'll hear from Matt LaFleur a little bit later on today. Also, we'll get an injury update and such. But with Christian Watson, Devontae Wyatt, and Jair Alexander, we'll see if he's going to be out in the practice field. I still wonder if they're going to hold him out because, you got the Rams and no Puka and no Cooper Kupp. So I got to imagine maybe that Jair sits this week again. not to look too far ahead, but Arizona, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. in there. Houston, you got Diggs, you got Nico Collins. Maybe they elect to make sure that he's ready to go for those 2 games. But we'll get a better idea of the injury report a little bit later on here today. So, but kind of our midweek adjustments here, taking a look at the Rams. How nervous right now are you of a matchup against the Rams going to the West Coast, going to California against a very desperate team in the Rams at this point? Is there any concern level right now sitting here on a Wednesday, coming off that loss on Sunday, going to a Rams team that's coming off of a loss themselves against the Bears? They're desperate for a win. You got to make that trip over to California. Is there any concern about this game? Or are you like, nah, they're so banged up. They don't got their top receivers. All good. I'm pretty darn confident in this one. What's on your mind so far? Okay. Well, we'll talk about that. I know a couple of you have already mentioned about would the Packers be open to trading for Devontae? I'd be no. It ain't gonna happen. For one, I mean, I was reading a little bit too, as I think it was Andrew Brandt that tweeted out. Anybody who's kind of trading for Devontae, it's kind of like for this year, and then we'll see. His guarantees are non-guaranteed for next year, but I think it was another reporter too that also said that if this was serious, the Raiders would have to be open for teams to talk to Devontae about a willingness to do another deal and kind of lower some of his cap hits and such over there. But any thought of Devontae coming back to Green Bay? Stop. I don't think that's happening. They did work out a couple kickers yesterday in their Tuesday tryouts. A couple names you probably didn't hear about, but no McManus or anything like that. And at least at this point in time, it looks like the Packers are going to roll with Braden Arvison heading into this weekend. So even though the Packers did work out a couple kickers, doesn't sound like any moves were made unless there's something different when they hit the practice field. But Chad Ryland and Lucas Havrasik were the 2 kickers that the Packers worked out yesterday. I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of any of those guys. I've never heard any of those guys. So, all right. Finish up the second hour here this morning with Morgs. How you doing?
You're in Brewers gear.
Got to root for him, man.
Are you loving it?
Well, not last night.
Well, not last night, of course. Do you feel like this, or do you think it's only because you're a Brewers fan that they only get real attention when they're like, around the Yankees or something like that? Do you feel that way like some people do? Because I hear that a lot from Brewers fans.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
How are you feeling about him here making the call after last night?
About winning tonight?
Yeah.
Not the greatest.
Now, if you had a future like a crystal ball, super like one of those magic 8 balls, and you could look into the future and you could know the outcome of the game, but not how they got there, would you still watch the game?
No.
So you don't want to?
I want the drama.
See, I always say the process is more important.
That's like knowing like when you're gonna die, isn't it?
Right. Would you want to know?
No.
Okay. So if there was a phone app where you could just scan a game, like the matchup was set for the weekend, like last week's game, Packers-Vikings, you could know the score, but you would have to watch how they got there. Would you watch the game? No, because you getting there is the fun.
That's why I hate being on Twitter during a game because I stream it, so it's like 10 seconds behind.
You that little bit of a delay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that messes with you.
It ruins it.
Now, if you could invent an app that doesn't exist, but you think you could use, what would you like what do you use right now as a phone app most often? Like, is there an app that you go to as a go-to that you use all the time? Like
taking away the basics.
Yeah, your most frequently used. I'm not talking like Snapchat, TikTok, like none of the actual social media stuff, but an actual phone app that you use.
Well, let me see which ones do I use the most here?
Yeah, your phone will tell you.
Looks like Duncan.
Okay.
Which I believe Luke Anthony owes me a coffee today from our bet last week.
You better roll in hot with that then.
You better be rolling with that. Royal Credit Union.
Okay. Well, hopefully he brings one for you because your bank account might not allow for it.
Exactly. And then my hunting app that has my land info and tree stand info on there.
So beans, bucks, and bucks, really. That's your
Very
lineup
good.
right there.
Yeah.
Now, if you had a phone app opportunity, an opportunity, we'll call it, to invent something that doesn't exist but should, what would you use? What about like
Gosh, I
a
can't think
parking
of
app?
that.
Like if it would tell you where the closest parking spot is. Are you a guy that circles the lot?
No.
Okay.
I don't mind walking a little extra distance.
Okay. What would be a valuable app then for you if you could say, "This is the Dan Casper signature app. I'm inventing it now. We need this in our lives."
That's something I gotta ponder. I can't do it in the next few seconds.
Would it be
It's a good
sports
question.
related?
Oh, yeah, of course.
How about an app that came up with answers on the spot for you so you
A
didn't sound like a
oh, wow.
Just throwing it out there,
Wow.
buddy.
It'd have to be like a Wisconsin sports, like, okay, hunting. You got my brain juices flowing
Like a
now.
Wisconsin hub.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's invent an app. That'll be the project.
Yeah.
Invent an app.
All right, I'll work on it.
Okay. What
Alright.
about if you could scan the woods and know where the buck was? Would you use that one?
Oh, yeah, that would probably be a good one.
So there you would take the end result.
Exactly, yep.
Okay. Pick and choose.
Thanks, Marks.
Anytime, Casper.
Second hour kicks off on this Wednesday morning, October 2nd. So big thanks for tuning in. Wherever, however you may be tuning in from, we'll get back to some more playoff baseball talk coming up here in just a little bit. Keep your predictions on coming over here. A couple of Facebook messages that were sent over to me about the Freddie Peralta situation. One of them was from Jake. Jake saying, if Freddie was a, quote, true ace of the staff, you leave him in there. But since he's not a true ace of the staff and you have a solid bullpen, I don't disagree with the decision to pull him that early. Another texter saying, hindsight's always 20/20. At that certain moment, I did not disagree with the change, especially going through the third time in the order when you got a full bullpen ready to go. Big Worm, morning, bud. If Narveson misses another field goal, he's done, right? Talk about Braden Narveson, Packers kicker. I have no idea, man. I have no idea. I mean, it sure looks like from everything that they're saying, Fleur, that maybe they're going to ride it out again. I don't know. I'm not saying I agree with it, but man, where does Devontae Adams go? I know the Chiefs have a big need, but would the Raiders actually trade him to the Chiefs? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Buffalo. I know the Jets are going to be the team that's going to be constantly talked about and such, but that's going to be an interesting one to watch, no doubt about it. If he wants to stay like towards the West Coast there too, I don't know if the 49ers, the Rams, or anybody like that would get in there. Who knows? But that's a tough one for me. I know the Chiefs are one out there. Would the Raiders actually trade him to the Chiefs? So I don't know. I can't see it. So, but who knows? We'll see where that ends up going here. I'm a little low on coffee, Luke. Did you bring it in?
Oh my gosh, that's right. I totally owe you on coffee.
Yeah,
that's right. Gosh, you know what? We could have set that over under at 1.5, and you would have won.
Well, where is it?
I forgot. I need to get you coffee.
Yep,
I will. Let's see. What kind of coffee do you want?
You know what surprised me? Just don't put anything in there that I'm allergic to.
Okay, you like cabin coffee. I know that.
I like any coffee.
You like any? Okay, yeah. Literally anything.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I need to go get you some. When do you want me to go get it?
Now.
Okay.
No.
Literally right now.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
I literally would run over to like Quick Trip or Starbucks or something. Those are the places that are closest to us. So
anything that's not made with your own pot. It's got to be like bought.
Okay. Well, of course, it would take a very long time to do that. So tell you what, how about at about 8 o'clock-ish or so?
Ooh.
We'll run over and get some coffee and a good amount of that.
Okay.
Yes.
Good amount. I like that.
A good amount.
Good amount over there. So I'm glad. Okay. So I've been waiting. First of all, we'll get to some baseball talk here, but I've been waiting for you on this Wednesday morning because there's a couple things I wanted to get your thoughts on. First of all, how surprised are you that Cat got traded? That actually happened, maybe. And do you like what you got in return?
Well, the second part, yes. The first part,
can Randall stay healthy? Is my big question.
And I don't know that he will. But then again, Cat wasn't entirely staying healthy either. The timing of it surprised me because there were no indications this was coming.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Like, put it this way. Bill Simmons has got pretty good contacts. Assess what you will of his takes and everything, but he knows people in the NBA, and he did his emergency pod with Austin Rivers over the weekend. He's like, I was having cocktails, and this stuff starts going to be like, what? Did not see this coming. But he said that in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense based on how things were going in, like, not things with regard to the trade, but aspects of each team. Like, it makes sense in retrospect, but there's no way you would have known it leading up to it. I figured this was going to be next year, maybe at the trade deadline, depending on how the team was going. I did not think a handful of days before media day.
Kind of like last year when the Bucks got Dame a little bit.
Yes, that's actually a pretty good analogy. With the one difference being that knew something was going to
Something was going to happen in Dame, but I think everybody was just kind of waiting for it to be Miami.
Yeah.
And then the Bucks kind of like, ooh, nope, here we go.
Right.
So.
So this, I was like, oh my gosh, they did it. But I also wasn't like, oh my, how do I reassess my life? Like, I was ready for it to happen at some point, whether it was now or in 2 years.
Mhm.
But we've talked a lot on this show about Karl Anthony Towns likely being the one that most needed to go. It's been a while since that really bad postseason. Was it 2 years ago? I think it was. He actually did fairly well last year. That's why you've seen a fair number of Timberwolves fans going, do we really need to get rid of him? Because he was seemingly trending up. But if you deep dive more into the stats, he needed to go.
Mhm.
General postseason performance is low compared to the regular season for him. Fouling rates are high. He's usually not in the top 3. Phil Mackey from, I think it's Score North, had a good breakdown and a simple breakdown. Like he's not in any of the top 3 combos for Timberwolves lineups in terms of, was it like points or effectiveness or whatever it was. There are a lot of reasons why you want him to go, combined with, of course, the cost.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm happy with the return. It's not so much Julius Randle. I'm like, okay. I mean, I know he can be a good player, but he's oft injured. He's going to be slow. Like, decision-making is going to be a thing. I don't know how well that's going to fit the Timberwolves offense. Would not be surprised with a slow start this year. He has a player option for the following year, so he might be in for 2 years, and I don't know that he's going to be around beyond that. I love the DiVincenzo acquisition. That is great. Good three-point shooting without the cost, and his contract just started.
Mhm.
That pick, thank gosh. I know it's probably not going to be, I mean, it's like what, top 13, top 11, top 9 protected from the Pistons. So it's not like the Wolves are suddenly going to have a number 1 pick. But I figured they were going to get something like that eventually after the Gobert trade, and not just, throwing around second rounders like they're confetti. They would happen at some point. They have more flexibility going forward to work around Anthony Edwards. Gobert eventually will go. His contract isn't lasting all that long. Naz Reid, I mean, gosh, he was performing as well as Towns in a lot of instances last year.
I think that's the name that you just brought up there too, because you think Rudy Gobert, but the Naz Reid aspect of this too. I mean, you're kind of like 3 deep, really, with big men.
Yes,
right? I mean, so one of them had to have gone, I would imagine.
It was not a perfect. It's not a perfect fit.
Mhm.
Over there, you have to have the most effective matchup when you have a lot of size in a league that is drifted back more towards size. I think in the past few years, we're not back to the traditional old center, but it feels like big men are having a bigger role. But 3 big men, if Karl Anthony Towns could have shot threes better in the postseason, maybe that makes more sense because he's such a good 3-point shooter, like I said, in the regular season.
It's almost like he reminds me of like when you guys had Kevin Love a little bit too.
Yeah.
That type of player.
He kind of is, with the exception of it being a postseason drop off.
Mhm.
And that sucks.
Mhm.
So I all in all, I am favorable towards the trade. Oh gosh, I hope he's, we say New York media there in Roger. I hope he survives that.
Mhm.
Good luck.
Well, I mean, he's got, Jalen Brunson, he won't be like, I can't imagine like the main focus, maybe like the 3rd, 4th, with that lineup.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson and such over there is going to get a lot of that attention. So it's interesting though, because from all accounts too, when Tibbs was in Minnesota, him and Cat didn't have the greatest relationship, but I was reading that Tibbs was open to a reunion over there. So I'd be curious to see how that works out again.
Yeah.
Because remember, Tibbs and the Butler, that second time around didn't work out.
No, that was there was a lot of not great with a lot of those folks. Look, the Knicks aren't making that trade if Thibodeau's like, not this guy.
Mhm.
No, he would have enough say over there to veto it if necessary. And no, he did not. I think they will all learn to be around each other. Towns, and maybe you could do the whole, he's definitely a beta male, especially after the Jimmy Butler thing. Look, not everyone's going to be as alpha male as Jimmy Butler. Side note, notice Jimmy Butler didn't do anything weird at Media Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember which pod it was I was listening to, but it was like, someone probably whispered in his ear, and by someone, I mean Pat Riley, like, knock it off.
Well, he kind of did that at the end of the regular season, postseason too.
Yeah.
He kind of I think he set that tone at that point.
Yeah,
so.
like let's get back to being who you are and not start turning into a brand or whatever. Right. So I as much as Towns is, I mean, I guess he can be pushed around a little bit more. On the other hand, he also seems to be okay with not being the absolute number one guy, as we saw with Ant over the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards clearly takes over. Towns was seemingly fine with that. I would think he would seemingly be fine with not being the number one guy in New York either. He's got all these other folks that either went to the same university, same agent, though he does have the same agent as Brunson. So that's going to, that probably is going to help, as much as a lot of us are like, agents? Yeah, that makes a difference, especially in the NBA, seemingly. I think he'll be okay, but he's going to have some moments. We're going to hear a lot more about it because it's going to be amplified by the Stephen A's of the world, just because it's the Knicks. But I think it'll be okay for them. There is a worst case scenario out there, and of course it involves the Knicks. But back over here, I think the Timberwolves, while they may have a worse record this year, they are better set up to be a long-term top 5 team in the Western Conference. And then the East, if they end up moving there when there's expansion. But they could be a top 5 in whichever conference they are because of this.
I know Bucks wise, they had their media days and everybody's freaking out when Giannis said that him and Dame didn't work out in the offseason and such. So get ready for that if there's a slow start. Well, they should have worked out in the offseason and such. But
cool.
Really quick too, back to baseball here. Do you agree with the decision to bring back Rocco?
Great. Yeah. I guess I think I'm almost convinced enough that that in-game decision making and his lineup changes was enough to warrant trying something different. Plus, I do wonder how much the team tuned him out. And I don't know the answer. Like, was it 0%? Was it 60% when the slump began in mid-August? And he was trying ways to motivate the team and it wasn't working. So is that on him? Is it on immaturity of players? Was it stuff just wasn't working? You could have had the most motivational coach ever and it still wouldn't have worked. I don't know. But given that the biggest problem with this team is still the ownership, I don't know that changing the manager ultimately would have changed this overall situation. Gosh, he's been manager since 2019. Actually turning out.
Wow, that actually surprised me. So, because he's the dude who replaced Paul Molitor, right?
Yeah, because I saw it was reminded scrolling through my Twitter feed today. On this day in 2018 was when Paul Molitor was let go.
Wow. Okay, it's actually been a little bit longer than I thought.
Rocco's been around for a while.
Wow.
So yeah, I know like the fire Rocco chants were picking up, and the players were defending him, and someone was banned from going into the stadium with a fire Rocco thing where they was fine before, which was bad look Twins. Like all of a sudden now it's like, no, you can't criticize the team, going all Kremlin on the Twins fans right at the end there. The biggest issue is still the poll ads. That press conference on Sunday during the Vikings-Packers game, naturally, did not go over all that well. Jim Pohlad saying, I got a business to run here. And like, oh, cool. So it's one of your portfolio assets? Like, we knew that, but that's how you're treating this here? He's like, I would have done the same thing no matter what. Like, cool. So that's our cap on this team.
See, that phrase, that quote you just mentioned there, too.
And it's a paraphrase, but that's the essence of it.
Right. Running a business. It goes back to, would you rather have your owner run it as a business or run it as a fan? Like there's poor examples of each, like David Tepper, Carolina.
Bingo.
It's like, all fan and or Steve Cohen maybe a little bit too, like a couple years ago when he was like, yes, let's do this, just like spend. You got to find that fine balance of running a business and also being a fan of it, right?
Right.
And that's tough for a lot of people.
I'm trying to find which.
I mean, it's easy if you're a fan and you have a wide pocketbook, right? I mean that part, but it's especially like it's more so in baseball, I think, right? Because there is no salary cap. And there is no rule like the NFL is what you have to spend 90% of your salary cap within a given couple years or something like that. It's making teams spend money and
Right.
not holding on to it.
That's the you hear the most about bad owners, and because I always get the Pohlads mixed up because there's so many of them. It's Joe Pohlad who's like basically the one who's running the team right now. The lack of a salary cap, lack of a floor is the reason why you end up with these spending decisions, and you don't hear about that too much in other sports because you have to spend money. You hear about cheap owners, obviously, in other sports, but they're kind of forced into becoming competitive. Whereas in baseball, you have the Fishers Pirates owner there's a penny pincher. Multiple examples of late. The Tellez one, and there was another one of late. Do you trust them to keep Paul Skeens long term? But hey, look at the view from PNC Park.
But that's the thing is like everybody just assumes he's going to be gone.
Well, I know, ironically, and maybe he'll end up sticking around. But how many other people are going to stick around as long as they don't have to spend the money? Why bother if you can find ways to stay in the black? Cool. But yeah, like there was a great exchange. And you can find this without going paywall. Aaron Gleeman from The Athletic had a back and forth with Pohlad about, is this just another business of yours? And finally got Pohlad to say at the very end, we will have a better product on the field next year. Now, that could just be a way of trying to wrap up the back and forth. But Gleeman got to the point of saying, all right, well, part of your concern is lower attendance. Well, yeah, you had lower. We don't know exactly why people didn't go to Twins games as much as they did before. It was bottom 3 attendance this year across baseball. But I'm sure there are a lot of fans that heard the comments over the offseason combined with the trade deadline, the lack of activity, and figured we're not going to bother going to this because we know what the end result's going to be. They are punting where most teams won't do that. Even the teams aren't competitive, they don't come right out and say, we're not going to win the World Series this year. We're going to try to not be competitive. They're at least like, oh, here comes the new season. The only other example I can recall, remember the Brewers back in 2005, was it? Remember the year where they basically said, we're going to try hard?
Yeah, I remember that now.
And I mean, part of me was glad that they were honest, but they were in such a bad position at that point. That was like the depths of modern Brewer ineptitude that they had said, yeah, well, we're going to have a bad team, but we're going to put out an effort there. But they put a cap on their season. But usually you don't do that. So Gleeman said, all right, so if there's attendance was down this year, you're going to use that as a reason to cut payroll, then come out and say we're cutting payroll. So fewer people will show up next year, be a reason to cut payroll. And like, how does that cycle ever end? Like, are you going to constantly justify this so you can constantly save money? Which led to the whole, all right, we're going to have a better team. But there is this is the strongest I've seen the anti-Pohlad sentiment since the late 90s, early aughts. Carl Pohlad was constantly threatening to move the team and the contraction thing. And he was really unpopular. And he is the guy that saved the Twins in 1984 when Calvin Griffith was very close to moving them to Tampa Bay. Carl Pohlad saved the team, and he was the most unpopular. Well, outside of Norm Green, he's the GOAT. No one will ever be more unpopular over there. But Rocco, fine, whatever. Let's give it a go next year, and maybe it'll work.
All right, we got to take a quick break here. I want to get back to some Brewers talk here. Brewers fans, chime in. Your confidence level in tonight's game. Did you agree with the decision about pulling Freddie Peralta from the game last night? Your reaction from the loss and looking ahead to Game 2. Start to hit us up with some text. 715-830-1912. Let's take a quick break here, and we'll get back to more baseball talk coming up in just a couple minutes. Reminder, you could catch the game tonight on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Coverage will begin at 6 p.m. Weird times, 6:38 is what they're saying for first pitch, but I was listening to the game last night on the radio at the end, and Jeff Levering's like 6:30-ish. So that's the official time, 6:30-ish.
And it depends on how the other games are going.
Exactly. So put it around there. But coverage will begin around 6 p.m. tonight on the radio dials over there. So Brewers fans, how are you feeling on this Wednesday morning after the loss from last night? Brewers jumped out to an early 2-0 lead in the first, gave it right away in the second, though, and bounced back, got it back in the fourth there. But that fifth inning, the fifth inning that everybody's talking about this morning, pulling Freddie Peralta, the Jackson Churio missed catching the outfield, Pyamps late covering first base and such, just a lot of miscues that I mean, you kind of have to tip your cap to the Mets for making the plays. I'll quote our good buddy again, Brandon Berg, because after the game last night, and Brandon will be back on Friday, he sent me a picture of Randy Quaid from Major League 2. If anybody knows that movie, you know who I'm talking about. The disgruntled Cleveland fan, right? And I asked him about his thoughts on pulling Peralta, and he said it didn't bother him as much as the consecutive defensive peeing of the pants as what we saw in the fifth. And good play on words here from Brandon. They looked pretty daunted from there on out. So obviously that's the mantra of the Brewers, if nobody kind of gets that over there too. So, but overall, and here's the thing too, like, I think, I don't know about you, but Brandon's probably the biggest Brewers guy I know personally.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy knows this from minor leagues. If I have a Brewers question, the first person I'm asking is Brandon, okay?
Yeah.
The fact, and I was talking to him a little bit more about it, you can sense the frustration building up in him that if they lose this series again, like there's going to be a lot of, he already said, if they lose, quote, if they look that bad again, which would be today, he said tomorrow, but today, and lose, I might go Randy Quaid on Friday morning.
Oh boy.
And Brandon's really not the very burn the world, tear it down sort of thing. You know him too. He's not that way.
He's one of the most chill people I know.
Right. So
even keeled would definitely describe him.
Yeah, that's the best way. He said it would just be another year of the same, I can't say that word. One playoff win since 2019 with 5 appearances. Last 3, they've been the higher seed. So let me ask you, Brewers fans, do you share that same thought process? Because for the longest time, because Brandon and I are the same age, but for the longest time, we just assumed Brewers weren't going to make the playoffs. Like, that's why 08, I keep referencing 08 was just kind of like this big kind of sigh of relief. Like, we were just happy to get in because I never experienced that. I never experienced a Brewers playoff series. And it was just like, holy crap, we're in. Okay. And then it was like, okay, we're just happy to be in. Then it was a couple more years. And then you had the runs of just getting in. It was like, okay, cool. We're in the playoffs. But the more you get in, you kind of want a little bit more and the expectations change, right? So I think we're at the point, like, that's changed where we're not just happy to be in. We actually want to win some games now in the postseason.
You have a team that is good enough to get to the World Series, potentially win it depending on matchups.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened several times and has not performed well in the postseason. See, now what's happening with the Brewers, and again, I don't want to make too big of a thing out of one game, but when it's a best of 3,
yeah,
you're also potentially 50% of the way to being out. That side note, here's the thing I had to remind myself again. I think we all need to remind ourselves. The first 2 rounds of the baseball playoffs go really fast.
Yeah.
Right. So be ready for this the hammer goes down really quickly, and like a day and a half after the playoffs begin, you could be over. This reminds me of a lot of Twins failings. Like I'm starting to see this with the Brewers. If this comes to fruition and we see another, what the are they doing? Where like their batting shuts down. They start making stupid mistakes. Like, where was this? Why did this team show up now? You've been good all year. Now suddenly you suck. Just like there was a complete change once we flipped to October, huh?
Here's a stat that I saw yesterday. The Brewers are the first team in Major League Baseball history to blow a multi-run lead and lose in 4 straight postseason games.
When you start getting into, and again, I'm going to keep referencing back to my team, but this is where like this happens. Now you're starting to get into those weird stats you never would have really pondered, but once you realize them, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible stat. Like the 18, 19, however many in a row, ultimately the Twins were losing over the course of 2 decades. I mean, and also because you're in the wild card / one and done era. So there are extenuating circumstances to some of these stats, but it is a stat, it's live, and it's a record now. That's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, do you get to the point where if you're a Brewers fan, you're hoping that they just lose today? If they're going to lose, just straight up lose, so the streak is done? Like, this is stupid. Well, what's your level? I know we'll make the picks over an hour from now, but what's your level of confidence this evening?
I'll be honest, it's not the greatest. I know this team has had their backs against the wall before, and I know Pat Murphy after the game said that they've been in this position, they've usually responded in that, but I don't know what to expect from Frankie Montas. And I know he had a good outing. And the weird thing is Frankie Montas' last game was the 27th against the Mets. And he pitched good, and he pitched really well in that game. He went 4 innings, 2 hits, 2 earned runs. The other pitcher, Sean Manaea, also pitched in that game, and he sucked. He was 3 2/3, gave up 5 earned runs. But that's kind of the outlier from him. And you look at this guy, Sean, I was looking at his stuff. This is a guy that goes nearly 7 innings in almost every start, or 6 2/3, and he's under 100 pitches in those starts.
Yeah.
And if there's the Brewers, they got to get to that Mets bullpen. So the thing is, can this offense rack up that pitch count and try to get him out of the game? I don't know.
I know I'm wary with Manaea. But this year, it's a 1.084 whip.
Mm-hmm.
It's 12-6, pretty decent. As much as I know, we don't value it.
And guess what? He's a left-handed pitcher.
Oh gosh!
Because what's been that narrative surrounding this Brewers team all season long? Can they hit left-handed pitching? Which means the lineup is probably going to be Bryce Terang at the bottom in tonight's game. That's if they follow the same thing that they've been doing for the most part of the season with left-handed pitching.
See, now this makes me think that actually this will be the night that they do really well against left-handed pitching. Again, the nature of so much we see in the postseason. That's naturally what would happen here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is the night that they finally figure out the left-handed approach. I don't know. Manaea's last 5 games, there were 4 wins for the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
I've always clarified that 4 wins for the actual team. But yeah, he went 7, 7, 7, 8, and then 4, and that, like you said, that recent loss last week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a tough one. But I don't know that I'm ready to pick, and I'll figure this out over the next hour. I don't know that I'm ready to pick against him, but it could be over early.
And the thing is too is like, I shouldn't say the thing is too, but yesterday, I don't know if it changed because I was actually watching a little bit of it on TV just at the beginning. There's quite a few empty spots in that stadium. I don't know if it was just late arrivals and that. There were some sections that I saw green and not filled in. I know the Brewers have been pumping lately, like tickets are still available. Tickets are still available. So I don't know if there's anything going with that.
Is this because I'm trying?
Is it the time? I know there was some,
comes up fast.
Well, there was some political stuff going on, so I know they said get here early because traffic might be backed up.
Oh, that's right, because Donald Trump was speaking in certain areas. Of course, anytime you have a major presidential candidate right around there, it's going to screw up traffic.
So that's why I don't know if later, because I just saw the first inning on TV, then I was listening to it on the radio, so I don't know if like it filled up afterwards.
And it's starting right around rush hour too. I mean, that's a bad time to be driving around Milwaukee. So I get that. But let's
and it's
see what
always
tonight's
hard
like.
to tell the environment like on TV.
Yeah,
it is always hard.
Right.
You know, but,
tonight, if there are empty seats, we got a problem.
And I'm going to bring up the empty seats and the attendance for the Brewers coming up in our business of sports, because Mark Anasio also talked about some revenue stuff yesterday too, leading into next year.
Oh boy!
So get ready, maybe to be a little bit more upset, Brewers fans.
Oh, is he going to pull a Joe Polat and talk about a $30 million pay cut?
Well, I don't know if it's that, but you know, there is the talk about Willie Adames in that, and a quote from Mark about Willie and his contracts, you know, potential free agent deal. So, but
okay,
yeah, there you go. So let me ask you, as an outsider. I mean, you're still a Brewers fan, but
I like him. Yeah.
Did they make the right decision with Freddie Peralta? Here, I'll play the clip from what Freddie said after the game, and then I'll read the statement from Pat Murphy. I don't know if you got to hear what.
I did not hear it, so yeah, let's play it.
Okay, so let me bring
Flash
it up
read
here.
it. Yeah,
I'll play the clip from Freddie, and then we'll read the reasoning from Pat Murphy there.
Okay.
So here we go. Audio courtesy from Todd Rosiak, covers the Milwaukee Brewers, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. This is Freddie Peralta first. So he's mad because he prefers not to.
wow.
So that's Freddie. Here's Pat Murphy. This is from Kurt Hogg. He's probably 18 pitches from where he is kind of at his limit. We take the lead in the game. We've got a full bullpen. It's a playoff game. You don't, well, we'd like to get him to 5 because of our bullpen usage over the week. You don't do that. You're playing to win tonight. Pioneers has got a 1.03 ERA in 30 games. Hasn't given up a run in 12 outings. If Pioneers gets into the top of the order again, or if Peralta gets to the top of the order again, then it changes how we use the bullpen. Then Ashby has to come in for Nemo and get the ground ball like he did. Pioneers is out of the inning, and we're not even talking about this. It was a good outing for Freddie. He was very emotional, so those 70 pitches are a little different when it's that much emotion. Pieups got the great play by Cheerio, and it's a tough left field out there at the same time of day. So that second ball, although it should have been caught, give the kid credit. It's tough line drive in that sun. That's the one spot of the field that's tough. He doesn't catch that ball. Now we've got to get 4 outs. Pieups gets the next out. Then he doesn't cover first, and then 2 infield hits, and then we bring in Ashby. He gives up an infield hit. Then he gives up another hit. They've got to face 3 hitters. It's unlike Ashby. He's been one of our best guys. His stuff is unbelievable. It's just unfortunate. Credit to the Mets. All they've been through, credit to them, no doubt about it. But Pieups and Ashby leaving Freddie in one more inning, maybe we could have. It would have changed how we used the relievers, but maybe we could have. I felt like we just took the lead. It had been an emotional 70 pitches. What's he got? 20 left? He's usually been 83 and 90 pitches when he kind of loses a little bit on his fastball. I didn't want to face those guys 3 times around. That was kind of my explanation. So to sum it all up, he didn't want Freddie facing the lineup for a 3rd time, given that he had a full bullpen, which has been, for the most part of the season, probably the brightest spot of this team.
It makes sense to make the move. I mean, outside of thinking he doesn't have too much left, so that could be 2 or 3. I mean, maybe more batters.
Mm-hmm.
It backfired. It's as simple as that. It probably should have worked, and it didn't.
If Freddie is a quote unquote ace, like a legit ace, I think there's still question. But if he's a legit ace, does that change it a bit? I think it changes it a bit.
Probably so.
And when I say legit ace, we're talking about like a Corbin Burr, those type
peak
of
Justin Verlander, to use a modern example.
That's a good one. Yep.
It's a bad example right now because he's not on the Astros roster at the moment. But we know what we know what we mean. Murphy's had such a good feel for this team that it doesn't. Yes, I know. This is his first game he's managed in the postseason. So did he break under the pressure? I don't think so. If anyone were to say that, that might be a straw man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna trust Murphy a little bit more on this, given his track record, given that the scenario or all of the factors in this scenario lean that way. And it's also easy. I got to tamp myself down on this. And I think a lot of baseball fans have to tamp themselves down on the notion of let him keep pitching. We're all analytics, everything. That third time through the order. Naturally, you have to get them up because analytics show Pat Murphy is, by most accounts, not a by-the-book analytics guy. He'll follow it as necessary. And if the stats blatantly show Freddie Peralta is not going to be good the third time through, well, then don't leave him out there. Even if he's doing well, but if his entire track record says he's good, and then suddenly he's not, well, then don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just a bad outcome to something that probably was going to work, given that the bullpen typically does really well. That's for the pitching of the Brewers in 2024. The bullpen is better than the starting core, and it didn't work out this time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And unfortunately, it's in a best-of-3 series, so the margin of error is really low. But I think Murphy probably would have made that decision again.
Mm-hmm. I think here's the other part too. If he leaves Freddie in, again, this is all hindsight 2020 stuff. If he leaves Freddie in for that third time through and he gets rocked, what's the conversation then? Why did he leave him in for the third time through the inning? It's
should have followed the analytics, but he went by gut and got, that's what we would have heard.
Right. Yeah.
It's no win.
Yep. Exactly. We're not even talking about this if Cheerio makes that catch or Piamps, is able to cover first in time and then the Brewers win.
Neither of those have to do with how the relief corps pitches.
Mm-hmm.
That's other stuff.
Right.
So is that Pat Murphy's fault? I mean, in that regard, no. I mean, maybe in terms of coaching them up, but they also can make boneheaded moves. We also have other players that have little postseason experience, like Piamps, like Churio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's Murphy's first time through, but there are a lot of young players or inexperienced postseason players that had their first game last night. The Mets, they've got some young players, but they got some folks that have been around a little while too.
Right.
So that it could be as simple as that this is bad timing for the Brewers. I don't want to start doing the whole, but they'll be more experienced in years to come. Well, let's not write the obit just yet.
The whole, obviously Freddie's upset, and the thing is, I wouldn't expect him not to be upset. Like a competitor doesn't want to get pulled. A competitor in a playoff game doesn't want to be pulled, especially if they feel like they still got something left to give. Not even, I guess, halfway through the game, a little under halfway through the game. I'm not surprised that Freddie's upset. And I'd probably be upset if he wasn't upset.
Yeah.
At that point.
True.
I want my guys to feel like they can still go out there and still perform and want to play. That's so everybody, I know there's some people like, wow, he's really pissed. This is going to cause drama. I don't think it's going to cause anything like that. I'd be more upset if he wasn't upset at that point.
I agree.
So
if they win the series, all will be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine, though, that the Brewers will play a better game. They may not win tonight. I think they will play a better they will execute better. I know that sounds contradictory, but I don't think you're going to see stupid stuff tonight.
Right.
But they may not win. It's just that the Mets may have more firepower. Lindor, oh, man, there's so much with that team. Just like, oh my gosh, there's so much with the Mets that they are hot right now. So, are you all ready if they lose tonight to put some money down on the Mets as National League champions?
That's the thing too, right? Is
Yep.
like whoever beats the Brewers, they're going on in. So, and then everybody's like David Stearns. There you go.
Of course, see the stupid Mark Atanasio. Like, no. Again, people will do that, and it's stupid. Should not be done.
Yeah. Yep.
If that happens, but let's see what tonight and maybe tomorrow bring.
Exactly. So, all right, we got to take a quick break, and we'll finish up the second hour coming up here. We'll get back to some more Brewers talk right away, though, coming up in the 8 o'clock hour in our Business of Sports edition. But hit us up with a text. What's on your mind? 715-830-1912. Quick break. We'll be back after these few words. We only got a couple minutes to the top of the hour here. So coming up next hour, we're gonna do a little business of sports, but we're gonna keep it to the Brewers here because Brewers owner Mark Anasio was chatting with the media a little bit yesterday, and well, a couple of things he talked about. He talked a little bit about the payroll. He talked about potential Willie Adames a contract and other revenues with the team and such. So depending on how you take some of the comments, maybe you get it, maybe not a big deal, maybe kind of lights the fire there a little bit if for some of you are not the biggest fans of Mark Anasio. So we're going to hit that up coming up in just a few minutes after our news updates at the top of the hour here for our business of sports segment. Other than that too, give me your predictions. We still got it looks like majority still going to go with the Brewers tonight. Got a few going with the Mets, but get your predictions in now. Hit us up with the text or comment on the video stream or hit us up on the socials if that's a little bit easier for you over there too. So, but keep those coming with our final hour here. I'm going to try to get back to a little more green and gold talk here in the final hour too, as the Packers will return to practice today to get set for their game against the Rams. Well, another fun nugget here. The Packers are the only team in the NFL to have two players with 375 plus yards from scrimmage this season. That would be Jaden Reed with 427 and Josh Jacobs at 381. Think about that. From Jacob Morley. Good stat there. All right, 2 in. We got 1 more hour to go on this midweek adjustment Wednesday. Speaking of the Pack, any sort of concern heading into a desperate Rams game on the West Coast on Sunday, or not really? We'll hit that up. Final hour on this Wednesday morning of October 2nd. A big thanks for tuning in. And a big thanks to Luke for the Starbucks over there. Pays up on his bets.
Oh, you can.
You're like, have you ever watched Game of Thrones?
Only like the first episode is.
Okay.
I just couldn't get into it, and it's not a knock on the quality. It's high quality. It just wasn't my thing.
Because a Lannister always pays his debts.
I think I've heard that quote. It's so popular. You kind of know it by osmosis. Also, like to thank Ty Huntley and Mason Rudolph for being competent enough to not throw interceptions. Wow.
If Will Levis would have stayed in that game, you might have had a chance.
Yeah.
That's his first throw was a pick or something like that. Right. So it's like, oh crap.
he alone might have gotten to 6 interceptions. What's the record for most interceptions in a game?
I know Favre threw 7 one time. I don't know if that's the record. So he threw that in a playoff game against the Rams. I remember watching that. I'll have to look it up.
Most interceptions, let's see. Most interceptions thrown by Jim Hardy, quarterback, 1950.
Okay. 8.
He was playing for the Cardinals against the Eagles. Yep, 8. And
Ty Detmer had 7.
Steve DeBerg, Ken Stabler.
Bratkowski had 7.
Yeah.
Peyton had 6.
Yeah, back in 2007. So the highest ranked local-ish. None. Well, then you go down to 6, and then it's like a way huge tie. So
I know Favre did in that Rams playoff game. It was a Mike Sherman one. It was like the Rams' greatest show on turf team, and it was just towards the end. It was like, yeah, we're just gonna chuck it and try to get in there. So yeah,
yeah. So
I think it was 7. I gotta double check it now.
So yes, so basically, never set the over under at 8.5. That's the rule. Though we haven't had anyone like Detmer in 01, but then the recency error would be, oh gosh, that Ryan Fitzpatrick game in 2016.
It was so Favre actually has 6.
Okay.
It was 6 against the Rams that day. I thought it was 7, but it was 6.
Okay.
So
6 is a possibility for one.
Yep.
Man, that was still not a great game. It looked good uniform wise, sucked quality wise.
I was thinking about this, and maybe this is a little hot take-ish and such, but the way the Dolphins game plan that game, Tyler Huntley's played some football too, right? Pro Bowl quarterback Tyler Huntley. But doesn't it make you appreciate a little bit more what Matt LaFleur did with Malik Willis in that game plan?
It is making me question the Dolphins' coaching ability, and thus it does make, like you just said, it makes the value even more for teams that like in the Packers case, where suddenly you got to have a backup, just join the team. How are you going to do with that? Yeah. Like again, even I mean, I know Love was playing this past week, but all in all, I still think I'll pull it out to the entire season thus far. LaFleur and the coaching staff generally still acquitting themselves pretty well this year, even in a 2-2 season. As the year's going on, coming back like they did in the second half. I know that was a machine that was running over them in the first half, but they turned that around. All of those aspects, like again, dealing with the backup quarterback, that sort of stuff, makes me feel, well, not me as a Vikings fan, but it should make someone feel good about the Packer coaching quality. It's fairly good over there at 1265 Lombardi Avenue.
Yep. An address everybody knows.
Exactly. So
really quick, Favre does own the record for most interceptions thrown in a playoff game, tied. I should say tied. But Norm Van Brocklin had 6. Bobby Lane had 6. You got to go to the 40s and the 50s.
There's a lot of that back then.
Yeah. Jake Delhomme has 5, and Rich Gannon has 5 over there. That was actually in the Super Bowl. He had 2.
The full Delhomme, use a Simmons term, but if you know, you know.
Yep. So the more you know. I like
that.
Let's do a little business of sports, shall we?
Let's.
So Mark Adanasio chatted a little bit yesterday, which I know is always for Brewers fans must listen to, must view, must read when it comes to his some of his comments here. So first off, let's kind of talk a little bit about the revenue for the Brewers. So first off, they had, I think it was $2.5 million fan, or 2.5 million fans this season, which is actually a little bit down because remember it was always like the 3 million mark. So it was 2.5 million this year. But some quotes from Mark Anasio. While the club's strong performance this year has led to increased ticket revenue and strong TV ratings, the owner suggested that it may end up a wash with the club receiving less revenue sharing. Quote, "We have a budget every year. Revenue isn't just ticket revenue. It includes beverage and sponsorships, all of which are strong. There's also revenue sharing, which we've talked about a lot. The way that the revenue sharing model works, everyone puts their money in the pot and then it gets recalibrated. The more money you make on a comparative basis, the less revenue sharing you get." Kind of an interesting note there. He also went on to talk about the uncertain TV revenue, right? The whole Bally Sports Diamond sort of thing.
Yep.
I quote, "We've got local media. Some would say challenges, but I would say opportunities with the challenges at Diamond and Bally. If you look at the medium term and not just the short term, I look at that as opportunities because of the ability to control our digital rights, which are very, very valuable, and that may occasion a step back next year." Kurt Hogg clarified that step, or Kurt Hogg, who covers the Brewers, had Anasio clarify that, saying, quote, "A step back meant less TV revenue coming in, not necessarily less money going out to the player payroll." So kind of clarifying that a little bit there. But he does bring up the TV thing, which I think is still way up in the air at this point.
Yeah.
For the Brewers.
RSN thing is still TBD. There's the whole Amazon thing that's still kind of floating out there. It's a possibility for, again, like it'd be like an additional pay tier. So if you got Prime Video, it's not like suddenly, hey, you got free games. Because I got Prime Video, there was part of me that was like, whoa, sweet. No. You still got to pay a little extra. But it would be through Prime Video potentially. I don't know entirely how these are going to get resolved. That was a big issue with the Twins. I keep coming back to that, but there are parallels between these teams. Right. And you can kind of look to the West to understand what's going to potentially happen to the Southeast. I know they take different approaches, but there are similarities, and that's a big source of revenue. Local TV ratings have still been really good, even with the problems with fewer people subscribing to cable. Thus, the fundamental model of the regional sports network is worsening. It's not as an effective model from a financial point of view, but people still do watch. But at some point, there's going to have to be that transition. We're in the transition now. 3-4 years from now, something will be figured out, and it's not going to be primarily watch Bally Sports on your cable lineup and channels. No. I mean, that it might be around in that capacity, but that's not the primary way. And it's possible, may not be at all. It may be entirely streaming / broadcast over the air, where we go back to the old catch the Brewer action on TV 18. For those who remember back in the 1980s, could go back to that. I remember I was saying that. I think about the Bucks. Yep. And then lo and behold, we have Bucks games on, and I'll still say TV 13 because I grew up that way. You got Bucks games on WEAU. Would never have thought that even 3 years ago, but it makes sense now. Now, I don't think we're going to get to the point of 162 Brewers games being on one of the local channels, but maybe, or at least a handful. And we don't have all the Bucks games on WEAU either, but it's something like that would happen. But that's when that all gets figured out, that's when the money gets figured out, and that is not entirely figured out because of all these bankruptcy proceedings, and maybe Diamond is figuring themselves out. As part of me is like, really great, so these guys won't go away. I know Major League Baseball wants to own everything so the proper distribution can happen, even distribution, get rid of the blackouts, but we're not there yet. And because of that uncertainty, that's a big part of, I think, what Atanasio is thinking from an RSN point of view, but he's also got the revenue sharing. And I guess if you do better locally, you're not going to get as much nationally from Major League Baseball. Logically so.
on the Adames front, this is what's really going to piss off some Brewers fans right now. At least he was honest with this, I guess. But he said about Adames, he's going to get an enormous free agent contract, and I'm very happy for him and his family. And we'll give it our best shot. But there's a lot deeper pockets out there. That's just the reality. So he's going to try. They're going to try. But it's a pretty frank picture. Willie Adames will not be back with the Brewers next year.
Okay. Well, so they'll have to use their younger talent. The thing is, though, that their younger talent probably is going to be, I mean, it's looking pretty bright, provided they don't get injured.
Ortiz will probably be the everyday starting shortstop next year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they bring in a different third baseman. Maybe Tyler Black is going to be getting that shot. I don't know, but any sort of hope, I guess you can hold on to a little bit of glimmer of hope. You can't fault Willie for wanting to get as much as he possibly can on the free agent market, especially in baseball when contracts are guaranteed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't be mad at Willie. Be mad at the situation at this point.
Yeah, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of that way too with this. Like it happens. These star players are going to leave. You're not going to be able to hold on to everyone. And do trust that Matt Arnold knows what he's doing when he's building up the team. Trust that David Stearns did a good job building up the farm system when he was there. Stearns is going to get credit / blame, however you want to look at it, but that's going to still be a factor too. Trust that is going to play out long term. And we're going to have to, I don't know why anyone wouldn't, but we have to accept the market size. And that's how baseball is. Until there is a salary cap and a salary floor, we're going to have situations where smaller markets like Milwaukee, and it's pretty small compared to a lot of the other markets, are going to struggle with free agents. That's the way baseball is set up.
Let me ask this then. Going back to what we were talking a little bit about earlier, about expectations changing for this team, where it's already starting to brew the frustration, pun intended, if the Brewers lose tonight or this series again, that, they won't win another series or won't advance again. But factoring all that in, for as much as they've been to the postseason, should we just be happy that we're still there?
It gets very close to the cool. You're always making the playoffs, and
right.
You can never win the World Series. The answer is somewhere in the middle, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, given the structure of the league, yeah, you should be happy. Let's be real. This should be heavily New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. It should be, because they have way bigger advantages that we don't see in other leagues, because they're built up to allow all of the teams to succeed. Baseball, we know the reasons why, but that's the end result. But if you are that successful that often, and the broken record here, this is your opportunity to drink, folks, or take a drink, because of the vagaries of the baseball postseason. And you have teams that spend less or lower seeds go on postseason runs, which has been happening a fair amount, especially of late, it seems. Well, then what is the excuse? But then you don't necessarily know when that's. Can you plan for that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know? Like, maybe are the Brewers about to go on one of those runs? Are the Mets on one of those runs? Are the Tigers? Are we shaping up after this whole season of following Ohtani and Judge, the Yankees and the Orioles, the Dodgers and the Phillies, and all of this, and the Astros coming back, and then, forget about those 6 months. Actually, it's going to be the Mets and the Tigers in the World Series. Like, what is it? We did that last year. Remember? So why do we even pay attention to the regular season? The postseason was completely different.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know that coming in. You got to get hot at the right time. So I will give I'll give the Brewers a pass on that to a degree. But frustration's understandable if you're always there. If you have a team that is ultimately good enough, if you happen to have a team that's ultimately good enough, and the setup around you is good enough, then you shouldn't be dropping balls and doing stuff like you did yesterday afternoon and evening either. And that's where the understandable frustration is. So, there's not a black or white answer to this.
Right.
I have less margin for error for the Yankees or the Dodgers. You got all the money. You should be able to do it. They should be winning the World Series a lot more frequently than they are.
That's true.
Cubs,
that's true.
You've got a lot of money in Chicago. You've got a lot of talent. Why aren't you guys doing? Why did the dynasty after 2016 never come to fruition? That's an organization that should get a lot more flack. I'm not just saying that because of being in Wisconsin. They should get more flack than the Brewers, hands down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. So it's going to be. Nothing's going to change anytime soon in terms of payroll or anything like that. That's why, I know there's still people upset about the name change, but for the stadium, but that's where that money is supposed to, that's what it helps with revenue in that, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like going back to his quote too about the shared revenue. It's almost a double-edged sword. It seems like where, okay, they've made more local revenue, but then they're going to get less shared revenue.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, crap, where do they get a little bit of extra boost then at that point? So these other local teams, just to play generic, so these other local team or these other smaller teams, I should say, who stink and nobody's showing up to their ballparks, they're going to get more of the shared revenue.
So I suppose I suppose this is where you need to have like development around, which that's what they're talking about doing, but that's what they're going to need to have. They're going to need to build, like a beer district or whatever.
Yeah, like a Titletown district in Green Bay and all that. Yep. The Pfizer Forum where they got the Bucks district and that.
Yeah. Exactly. It's going to be imperative to do something like that if they're going to make more money. You can't just be a stadium going forward. And I know there's more to American Family. This is not you just watch the game, but they're going to have to build out more of that. You get more revenue that way. You can compete more that way. They have to find alternate methods of making money, and you can't just do it through all like naming rights. There's only so far you can go, and then you run out of options. So that's where I think development is going to help the Brewers. But then, I suppose bigger market teams because they're doing the same thing too. And if everyone's doing the same thing, obviously more money will go to the bigger markets because they're the bigger brands. There's more money available in the first place, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not a great situation. I get that. It just isn't.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I nothing else unless you get a different owner that's just like, I don't care. I'm just going to spend money and all that. Doesn't care about
Peter Seidler.
Yeah, like the local media revenue isn't really a big factor because they just got this influx of cash and throwing it out there and that. So
yeah, it's going to be a tough situation
for
a while.
I'm not the smartest when it comes to this, but like more investors. Like Giannis owns a 0.5% or whatever the heck it is.
Potentially.
But like what the Bucks just did with Junior Bridgman.
Yeah, potentially so. If they have the money where they can spend on ancillary stuff, that would help. It also depends on how much those, like you were just saying, they have to want to spend money knowing that you're not necessarily going to get a return.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why most owners, and yet again, look to the West, Polads, billionaires, but they're looking to make money off of this and cut payroll. The reason they make that money is because they've always found ways to make money. They don't lose money. Yeah, you invest at a certain point, you spend money to make money. It's not like they're always having income. But they're not just going to be like, oh, sure, let's throw $15 million at that player. That'll work out. And if it doesn't, you're like, oh, whatever. Rarely are you going to have that. Maybe a few owners here, they're like not quite a Steve Cohen because he throttled way back. But occasionally you'll have an owner like that. Most are not going to do that. And also notice the ones that tend to do that also are the ones that are the biggest fans of the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Usually if you're owning because it's an asset or you like the team, but you want to be in baseball or something like that, you're not going to just spend your money and not get a return off on it. But hey, at least I'm an owner. Fans, we think we would do that, but we're fans. We're not the people that made billions of dollars either.
Mm-hmm. Goes back to the question too about, I posed the last hour. Would you rather have your owner be a straight up fan and careless about how they run the organization, straight up business and all that? Obviously, you want a little bit in the middle. but a receiver deferred. Would you say Mark Anasio is a little bit in the middle?
Yeah, he's
given everything. He's like business conscious, but also fan wise, he wants to compete.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Brewers have been more successful under Mark Anasio than they were under most of the Seelig tenure. And again, massive asterisk. If he had as many playoff spots available going back to 1970, well, yeah, the Brewers would have had way more postseason success, and who knows what that begets for the team of like, oh, they're not in the 26-year playoff drought. Maybe if you're making the playoffs on a regular basis, you have more players wanting to come. Who knows how that goes? But especially the immediate predecessor, the Wendy Seelig Prieb era, and that's more management as opposed to ownership. But that was not a good tenure. Atanasio takes over. They've been a more dynamic organization. That might be the best way to put it. Yes, there's more winning. There have been some bad seasons and obviously more playoff bursts, but there have been more opportunities to make the playoffs. They have been a more active organization. There's more of a spark to them. They've definitely promoted themselves further throughout Wisconsin. They haven't been as Milwaukee-centric as they were up through the mid-aughts, and part of that was their on-field performance, but they and the Bucks seem to not really be relevant up here. They're far more relevant now. That's a lot. I'm going to make the connection to Mark Atanasio for that. And so I think all in all, it's good that he's been there, that he likes working with the team, but he also wants to make money. It's probably close to the happy medium, and I'm sure a lot of Brewers fans don't want to hear that, but really, it's probably the right move given the market size and the finances of Major League Baseball.
I still go back. I have this, and I've mentioned it a few times when I was at Game 5 with the Diamondbacks in 2011 and throwing up the tee, Tony Pleshett, the walk-off, and the on-field celebration. One of the loudest cheers after that, as the confetti's falling down, is when the stadium camera panned it on Mark Anasio in the field. That got one of the loudest cheers. Was when the camera was on Mark Anasio. And the feeling I got was just, it was kind of like, I think, I don't want to speak for everybody who might have been there at that point, but it was almost like a thank you sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, thank you for building, spending, so we could be in this position, that we're going to the NLCS sort of thing. That's the feeling I got. And it's changed quite a bit now, it feels like, after all these years.
It's kind of I get the frustration of, we've only been back once. There seem to have been a lot of opportunities. But on the other hand, what else would you want at this point? I mean, Bud Selig was a Brewers fan. He was a baseball fan. Saw how that team operated. But do you want someone who's going to be the other way around and be totally business-minded? Then you're going to have what you see out west, and you see how fans are treating the poll ads right now, and understandably so. That's far worse than anything I think we've seen with the Atanasios, where where people are openly chanting "sell, sell, sell" at Twins games. That doesn't happen at a Brewers game.
Yeah,
at least not to
that
the
I've
point
heard
where.
of.
Yeah. So there is a be careful of what you wish for thing with that. Realistically, the next owner is probably going to be similar to Atanasio. It'll be someone in the middle who is going to try to compete as best as possible. But the big thing, and I keep coming back to this, and it's the thing that's, I don't know if it'll ever be resolved in our lifetimes, and you're in your 30s and I'm in my 40s. So this is a long time
Can't
to say
that too much more for me. Good Lord.
No. Still trying to ponder my wife is 40. Really? She's not. She is.
Your wife's older than me?
She is.
Wow. Okay.
1984.
I did not know that. I thought she was a little bit younger. Okay, never mind.
She looks younger. She's got the genes for it, but I mean GENES genes for it. But in our lifetimes, I don't think Major League Baseball is resolving this.
Dude, there is no way. Like, I know everybody still says put a salary cap. There's no way that's happening.
Should happen. Won't happen.
But it won't happen.
So we got to work with this.
Do you think teams like the Dodgers and that want a salary? Hell no, they don't want a salary cap.
They don't. They're
right now in the NFL. If you ask Jerry Jones, you want a salary cap? He'd probably say no. Those high spender teams.
Well, heck, they don't want to do like an overall baseball TV deal because those teams have RSNs that are working fairly. I know the Dodgers actually are not a great example with all the blackouts they've had, but Yes Network and such, they don't want to break out of that to do something league-wide.
Right.
They're going to object pretty loudly. And those are some pretty influential owners. That might stop that from happening.
Yep.
That's what Manfred wants, that, which would help the Brewers and a lot of these other small market teams. But it's not going to be easy.
Because remember, commissioners work for the owners.
Mm-hmm.
Owners don't work under the commissioner. The commissioner is like the representative of all the owners.
Right.
That's why Roger Goodell will go up there and take all the heat and all that, because that's what the commissioner or what owners are paying them huge salaries for.
This will be an interesting battle, though, given that I think the majority of owners are with Manfred, but the most influential owners are against.
Yep.
But that's a minority.
Mm-hmm.
How does that go?
Yep.
I see, that's when there's not an easy answer for that one. This isn't quite like, oh, Jerry Jones is just going to swoop in and get what he... not quite in baseball.
No.
I don't know how this goes. But I do think at some point, though, there will be a uniformity to it, which will help the Brewers, which will help Atanacio's situation.
Mm-hmm.
But in the TV sense, in the broadcasting sense. And then after that, you're going to keep losing Willie Adames every so often. But if you're smart to build up your team, you can still be competitive.
Hey, maybe if I'm going to look at it from a positive side, just to wrap it up here, the last couple times that we've given long-term big-time deals really maybe haven't worked out to the best for the Brewers either.
Also true. So, maybe this is okay.
I know Yelich was having a great bounce back here, but then he got hurt. So maybe look at that side.
It's okay to build up your farm system a lot.
Mm-hmm. And just really capitalize on that when you have that chance to.
Yes.
All right, good stuff there. By the way, if you hear a lot of stuff, they're working on a roof. So if you hear anything in the background,
there are a lot of people walking above us right now, and our roof is 100% angled.
Yeah, that's true.
Except for like right when the two angles meet at the top, that's like the one straight part. So that's like a balance beam. So if you hear a thump, we might just run out of here and try to help. We're just hoping everything goes well up above us today.
Sounds like a bunch of reindeers up there kind of walking around.
Well, it's a bit of a chill in the air this morning.
Football last night with a little chill. That was, we had our football game last night too. So
about time it felt cool.
Shout out to the Yellow Jackets again. I'm going to use my forum here. Down 4. We were, Luke, down 4. 2 minutes. We had to go the length of the field. The boys pulled it off with a no-huddle offense, too.
Remember the Titans music going?
Got to give them a shout-out.
Nice.
Ooh, I should bust out that play. Backside George reverse. Yeah.
There you go.
But shout-out to those boys out there.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right, we got to take a quick break here, and then we'll be back after these few words. Might as well do a little bit of an early predict here because I've gotten this question a few times now already this morning. Where's Devontae going to get traded to now, Luke?
Ooh, good question.
Diana Rossini had a tweet just a few minutes ago saying that two teams it's got to keep an eye on. One, the Jets. Oh, my God, a shocker, the Jets.
Wow, never saw that coming.
And the Cowboys. Because, of course, why not, right?
The two most overhyped teams in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the question at hand. Here's the interesting thing in this whole thing is how I'll throw this in there. The team that seems to be the most obvious, I don't know if the Raiders do it. The team that has a clear need at that position is your rival in your division, the Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But would the Raiders trade him to the Chiefs? And it goes down to the question, what if the Chiefs meet your asking price? What if they maybe exceeded a little bit? Would you just take that deal? Or no, we can't do it because that's in our conference. Or that's in our division. We can't do that. That's what it might boil down to.
That's really tough. I might actually I think it's more beneficial to the Raiders in that instance because you're probably going to set yourself up better longer term than for the Chiefs. That's totally a we got to win now sort of move.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably take that, which also makes me think there's no way that the Chiefs would do that. They're going to probably find someone else to, if they need to resuscitate their core, if it turns out that all the other people they have can't fill in the gaps from Rice, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it being Adams. I could see Buffalo as a possibility, though. I mean, Buffalo looked good earlier on. On the other hand, hey, it's time to throw out DVOA stuff. They took a hit this week because the opponent matchups are now starting to be factored in, and the opponent matchups weren't that great for the Bills for their ranking. They're still one of the better teams in the league, but they're not like number one so far. Mm-hmm. By the way, number one team in DVOA, just that. So this is not counting in the preseason predictions, but just through 4 games, they're Minnesota Vikings.
I kind of figured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they're like 6th or 8th, and then the Packers are 8th or 10th if you count in preseason. So the holistic way of looking at it. So Buffalo, I do think is a possibility. If you think that, well, maybe they're not going to be as white hot if what you saw against Baltimore is more indicative of where the season goes. Not that they're going to get crushed, but that they would have struggles. Then maybe Buffalo is where to go. With the Jets, I mean, maybe, but that offensive line still sucks. Sorry.
Well, now you got Garrett Wilson coming out and criticizing the offense. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he came out on a podcast and said, I watch football on Sundays and I see teams, essentially saying being creative and doing a bunch of different stuff and him saying they're pretty vanilla. That should be a nice long play ride to London to face your Vikings, with that. So, yeah.
I'm already looking forward to this game now. I was worried earlier. Right. I don't know that I'm that worried. Of course, watch Jets will win. So if the most likely options, let's take Rossini's at face value. So Jets or Cowboys? Cowboys?
How the hell can the Cowboys do that?
I don't know where the money comes from.
I mean, again, going back to Jerry Jones, we couldn't afford Derrick Henry. Okay, but you're going to be able to, shell out these deals for Dak and CeeDee and now acquired Devontae. Come on, dude. Just come on.
Hey, maybe they can throw in Trey Lance as part of this.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Gosh. I know he's getting talked about as maybe a Miami one. Well, okay, well, let's see how that goes.
I've got 2 teams that, first of all, I'll say this. If they were in a little bit better position and still had these injuries, the Rams would make a ton of sense because of their injuries at the position.
Yes.
But at 1-3, I almost feel like if they were 2-2, I'd feel a lot, if you're the Rams, you look at making that move. And assuming that, Cooper and Puka are still going to be out for a little bit, that one would just make a ton of sense because if Devontae still would prefer to be in the West Coast, boom, right there, right? You're in the West Coast.
Right.
San Francisco, if they traded Brandon Ayuk, that could be a possibility, but they got Debo and Brandon and all that. So
I think they're going to be fine.
Yep. I'm going to throw a wild card out there. I don't think it happens, but I think they should explore it. The Chargers.
Intriguing.
West Coast. Obviously they, no more Mike Williams, no more Keenan Allen over there. You got Justin Herbert over there. Do you want to give him a weapon of a Devontae Adams caliber?
That might be decent. I think Harbaugh might be like, ooh, let's go. Again, to throw some stats, Rams season thus far, DVOA 26, but they're 18th if you count every preseason projections. The Chargers are a flip. 20, it's kind of, but they're 24th for the counting preseason projections, but they're 17th thus far in DVOA. So, I mean, either is potentially competitive.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't going to like the Patriots, like why?
Steelers, I think, could if the Steelers were that serious about Brandon Ayuk, I would have to imagine they make a phone call.
They probably do. It's a question of who do they give up, and does that harm their defense at all?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that the Raiders necessarily.
I mean, if it takes what they're saying, a second-round pick for Devontae, and you're the Steelers right now, riding a 3-1 record, do you pull that off? I think you pull that off.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders' offense and defense, neither one's that great. So, I mean, I don't know that you're necessarily going to pull much from Pittsburgh's defense.
But if it just costs that second-round pick,
it's not bad. No.
The thing is with Devontae here now too, he's got to realize part of it. I think Devontae is going to almost have to give permission because, as I was reading last night too, with that contract, teams are probably going to want to redo the contract, so they got to talk to him ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the Brandon Ayuk situation again, where they're like, okay, would he go there? We don't want to trade for him, and he's not going to agree. I mean, look at what the Jets are going on with Reddick. They still haven't figured that thing out, and that's not what they want with it. So Devontae would have to be like, okay, yeah, Steelers are 3-1. Would he be okay with Justin Fields being his quarterback or Russell Wilson?
That's a really good question, and I don't think for Pittsburgh they want him. I don't think he does that one. Allen or Herbert are better options. I think he's going to go somewhere where he thinks he can get the ball a lot more frequently and be close to a number one target.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where those teams make a lot more sense. We are ruling out Green Bay, are we?
We are 100% ruling out Green Bay.
Okay.
There was some stupid trade thing I saw, like some Packers website. I'm like, stop it. Just stop.
Yeah.
I will say, though, should the Packers maybe do the Jordan shrug? Like, hey, you could have stayed here. Hey, you could have played with Jordan Love. Hey, you could, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or maybe the better one is Jordan's security guy, the quarter. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The guy with the white hair.
Yep.
Like,
that guy.
Maybe. Grass isn't always greener, right? Yeah. For Devontae's sake, though, too, I mean, hey, maybe he wants to go to New Orleans and follow his buddy Carr.
Well, I mean, that offense is still, even the way the last couple of weeks have gone, that's still pretty good. I mean, you got some potential there, maybe.
The thing is, too, is like if Devontae, okay, if he wants to if he's going to have to redo his contract to the team he's going to, he's going to have to answer the same question about the Jets that he had with the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if that's the stability part of it is a part of that, do you want to go to the Jets then? I don't know if you want to.
It's not a stable organization.
Because what if you miss the postseason this year, and then you've pretty much are – there's probably going to be a lot of firings at the Jets, and you're probably kind of starting over a little bit.
Mm-hmm. You're basically Raiders East.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in a worse situation.
I think if you're Devontae, you got to look for a situation, where am I going to win a Super Bowl? Right?
Right.
Or maybe have some stability to where, okay, I like the chances for the next few years sort of thing. Jets are like, 14 games left and they're done for that era.
Yeah. What
about the Commanders?
Ooh. The offensive juggernaut that is the Washington Commanders.
Because Devontae had some high praise for Jane Daniels earlier. A couple weeks ago, he talked about it. Because remember during the draft, there was that thought that the Raiders maybe tried to move up because the Arizona State connection with Antonio Pierce and Jane Daniels and that. And Devontae kind of alluded to that too. And he had high praise for Jane Daniels.
If it doesn't involve too much giving up on the team right now, maybe. Oh boy, then suddenly they become the favorites in the East, I think. I can't believe I'm saying that after 4 weeks. That's usually a stupid thing to say. But the way that division is playing out right now, I still think Philadelphia figures something out, though. I do think they're enough because of their talent, not necessarily because they're a stable they're like a good unstable organization. If that
Who do you trust more, Philly or Dallas in that division right now?
No, man, that's
is it weird to say we might trust Washington just slightly a little bit more
right now? Early in the season, a quarter-ish of the way through, I trust the Washington Commanders, and that's a legitimate statement. That's not a best of a bad situation. They know what they're doing. They're obviously a more stable organization post Snyder.
You got to tip your cap there. You got to kind of have to feel good for that fan base a little bit, right? For all the crap that they've gone through, and who knows if it's going to continue this way. But I mean, Commanders fans got to be at least a little excited right now.
Yeah, if you, I mean, this is definitely not local centric, but give the latest SP Pod a listen, because of course Van Pelt was a fan back in the day, and as he said, he gave up on the team because the team gave up on a lot of other things. So it was understandable. But they talk about that a fair amount, and it's going to come up a lot because of course of where he grew up in the area and being a fan. You're going to hear that throughout the season. But give that part of the most recent podcast that came out yesterday. There's a chunk in the middle worth listening to about how the fan base has fallen, but how it's coming back around in this team overall. And good for the fans, because that was a diehard loyal fan base. You could say that about a lot of, probably most NFL fan bases, not all. It was. It sure as heck hasn't been of late, where you have more road fans than home fans. In Washington, you'd expect that in Los Angeles, not in Washington.
So really quick before we take our final break, give me think about it. And we'll take a break and make it part of our picks and predicts.
Okay.
The team that should acquire Devontae and the team that will acquire Devontae.
Good one.
All right, so think about that for a little bit. We got to take our final break, and then it's picks and predicts time, including playoff baseball. Will the Brewers' season end tonight, or can they force Game 3 tomorrow night? We'll make our picks coming up after these quick words. All right, let's wrap it up with some picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room in Eau Claire. If you're looking for somewhere to maybe catch some of these games in action today, head on over to the Elbow Room, located right next to the Banbury Place. Also got trivia on Wednesday nights there. All right, the team, look, that Devontae should go to.
I'll say Buffalo.
Okay. I'm going to stay with my Chargers pick just because
Okay.
I like that one. It fits what Devontae wants, West Coast. He's got a quarterback over there. He's got a good head coach. I'll go Chargers. Will he go to?
My number 2 pick, the Washington Commanders.
You think he will go to the Commanders?
I think so. I'm reading Bill Barnwell's ESPN Plus article, which is, again, very deep divey, so I'm skimming. But he says it's the one he says it's the one that makes the most sense. And logically, even for the ownership group, makes sense. There are a lot of reasons to think that that's where he's going to land. I wouldn't be surprised if we have Washington Commander Devontae Adams pretty soon.
Gosh, I would like. I mean, from the I know that's the NFC, but that would make for an interesting team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Cliff Kingsbury's figuring something out with his offense over there. That's for sure. Jaden Daniels would have that help. Terry McLaurin's over there too. So, I'm trying to. I don't. Are you of the notion too? Like the most obvious ones probably aren't the place.
Probably, yeah.
You know, like because everybody's like, oh, Jets because they're Jets. You know, but
if the Jets were off to a better start this season, I'd probably say, oh yeah, they're going to figure this out because of Aaron Rodgers and how much influence he has. At this point, I don't know, especially if they lose to the Vikings.
Yeah.
And especially especially if they look mediocre again, losing to the Vikings. I don't know how that's going to happen.
I'm going to go Buffalo. I think he'll go Buffalo. There's an obvious need. It's a playoff team. I'm going to go Buffalo.
Okay.
Over there.
Would not surprise me.
So, all right, let's do some baseball picks here. Will these teams move on? Will some teams get swept? Will some see another day? Let's start off with the first game of the day today. Tigers, Astros. Tigers, 1 win away from advancing. Who wins?
With Hunter Brown taking the mound for the Astros, I think the Astros even this up.
I'm going to go Astros as well.
ABC baseball today.
Right? Yeah. I was watching a little bit of that yesterday. It was getting closer at the end of that ninth inning. It was like, oh, boy, are they going to do it? So, Royals, Baltimore Royals picking up a 1-0 victory last night.
I think the Royals sweep it.
You know,
2-game sweep, but yeah.
Yeah. I had Baltimore win the series, but I'm going to go Kansas City too. I'm going to go with the Royals.
Yeah.
And I guess, can we say the Corbin Burns thing didn't work out? I mean, they went to the postseason, but.
Yeah. Advantage Brewers.
I guess so, right?
I guess, which leads us to. Or are you going to go to the Braves Padres game?
We'll go Braves and Padres.
I like Fried on the mound for the Braves, but I think the Padres, they are like kind of the sexy pick from all the ESPN folks on who's going to win the World Series. But I get it. They actually, more people were predicting the Padres to beat the Dodgers if they end up meeting each other.
Interesting.
In the division series, which is the way the bracket goes. I think the Padres win tonight and they move on to play the Dodgers.
Look at this. We're picking the same ones right now. I'm going Padres. I just think the momentum's on their side right now. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Pods. All right.
And here we go.
Mets, Brewers. Where are you at on this one?
Sean Manaea has a poor postseason record. He's done well this regular season. Frankie Montas, shrug emoji.
The Jordan shrug emoji again.
Yeah,
the Jordan security guy.
I don't know.
First of all, that guy works security. I'd have questions if I'm Jordan. Anyways, go ahead. Seriously, you're Michael Jordan. That's one of your security guys. Come on, now. Let's. That's
it's like
not
it's so weird you don't mess with him. It's got to be that, or had to be that. Mets. You realize the Mets and Phillies have never played each other in the postseason? I learned that this morning.
Interesting.
And I'm predicting that will be a first-time thing later this week. I'm sorry.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. And part of it is like I'm going to do the reverse psychology again. But now that I said that, it's not going to work. So there we go. I screwed up
You
everything.
double jinxed
I
yourself.
screwed it all over.
Great.
Screwed it up all over. I don't. I just, no offense to Frankie. You look at the averages from Frankie, you know you're going to have to, he's going to give up at least a couple earned runs, two, 3, or whatever. Can you keep it to that, and can you score enough?
And I don't know that he can. However, I'll make this prediction. Brewers win tonight, they do advance. They will win another game.
Okay. I'm curious who would get start game 3. Aaron Zavali pitched yesterday. It'd have to be Tobias at that point, I would imagine. Because Colin Ray's not on the roster.
Yeah.
On the wild card roster. So wow. Rookie in a game 3. Do or die.
But sometimes the rookies do that well in do or die situations.
I think I wonder at that point it'd be all hands on deck, though.
Yeah. But remember, though, these are the Mets, and I know they've been more clutch of late, surprisingly so, but the Mets will Met a fair amount. You guys consider that as a possibility. They could blow up their season like you cannot imagine.
I don't want David Stearns celebrating in the visitors' clubhouse. Get it done, Brewers. Okay. I don't want to be talking about end of the season tomorrow. We'll just say that.
Okay. Hopefully not.
I'm nervous.
We'll see.
But maybe that's a good thing.
Listen tonight.
Have a good Wednesday. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning past 6.